Greetings, friends. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the Grit and Equity podcast with Dr. G.R.I.T. So thrilled to be here with you. I hope you've enjoyed your Valentine's week. I hope you're enjoying February. I hope that you're celebrating, BIPOC communities and that everything is really just working out in your favor. So before we get started, I want to make some announcements. First things first. The Grit and Equity Talks podcast with Dr. India White will be featured on X Factor EDU, hosted by Dr. Matthew Joseph, and it can be found on Spotify. We will play this on Thursdays, so keep out, keep us, keep on the lookout of it and see what you're able to kind of glean from this podcast. I appreciate any feedback. I appreciate all sponsors. We appreciate all the support from all of you rock stars all over the nation. Thank you. And internationally. All right, next. I want to remind you guys that if you're wanting to follow me on social media, you sure can. Facebook is Miss India White. LinkedIn is The India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indie238. YouTube is India White 123. And my TikTok is Dr. India White. So I hope that you're able to support me on these different channels. I would love to connect with you. I would love to share ideas with you. And also, if you would like to be featured on the Grit and Equity Talks podcast, feel free to send me an email at india.white.123@gmail.com so we can get you scheduled. Or if you have a podcast idea, topic that you want to talk about, feel free to let me know. I'm also here for consultations to help you as you are preparing to close the achievement gap and do other things. Now, this podcast is if you are trying to close the achievement gap, but you're having classroom management issues, it's for you. Or if your students aren't motivated to work, this podcast is for you. If you're also, concerned about other issues, just how to connect with students overall, then this is the podcast for you. So with that said, I also want to remind you guys that I'm super excited about some of the work that has been going on nationwide, just being able to join you in various efforts to really connecting with students and supporting all of you rockstar teachers out there, supporting all of you rockstar principals and administrators. And again, I want to thank all of you for allowing me to be on your platforms. I also want to thank you entrepreneurs and business leaders for giving me the platform as well to join you in various events. So with that said, I will share with you guys a couple of events I have coming up. I'm going to be doing a keynote at the NEMSF conference. That is February 23rd through 25th. It'll be in Maryland. I will be speaking to some phenomenal doctors, medical students about grit, and I'm super excited. I also will be conducting a couple of grit and numeracy workshops for California school districts from March 5th through the 7th. So I did already post this. If you are in the area, I would highly recommend that you do what you can to register. I think it's going to be a great time for all of us to connect and talk about grit and numeracy and how all that looks in the classroom. I will also be one of the speakers at CMC Central Conference in Bakersfield, California. I'm super excited. It will be my first time being at CMC Central. So I think this is going to be a great time to, come from Florida and join you guys over there in California. So with that said, I hope to see you guys at some of these events or just spread the word for those that might be in the area that, could benefit from this event. I want to thank all of the sponsors, all of the event planners, all of the people that have supported me, all of the people from, National Geographic, Big Ideas, and, from the medical field, all those rock stars there, everyone that has supported me and allowed me to join you. Thank you. So with that said, I am going to talk today, since we are talking about love and Valentine's Day and all this stuff. Some people are down and, they don't like Valentine's Day because they're like, they don't have a Valentine. Sometimes people are like, I don't have a Valentine. Fine. I'll just call my girlfriend and she'll be my Valentine, or call my guy, my buddy, and we'll just go play basketball together. So I don't know how that works. But anyway, I'm here to say, you know what? Let's focus on just love in general and how we can have healthy love. But of course, since this show is tailored towards leaders in school districts and universities and whatnot, and towards students. I'm going to talk about properly expressing love and loving acts towards all students. Now, when I say proper love, I mean inappropriate, with parameters, boundaries, making sure that everything's above board, that students aren't being abused in any type of way, but they're truly being loved, and that there's a healthy communication going on with students and teachers. So, with that said, I have some tips for you. So, first things first, tips for showing kind acts in love. First things first is, as an educator, you want to definitely demonstrate kindness to students to let them know, hey, I'm here for you. If you're having a bad day, just know that you can reach out to me. If you're hungry, get with me and I'll see what we can do to support you. Just showing kind acts to let the student know that you really do care for them. I remember when I first started teaching, I was very Jill Sargent-y. I would come to class, no smile, no love, nothing, just cold, boom. And it was just very drill sergeant because, for one, I was young. When I first started teaching, I was in my early 20s. And so, literally there was one student in my class who I think was only a year younger than me. And so I had to like mask it. And I know for, you beginning educating rock stars out there, sometimes it's like, how do you find the balance? How do you know how to put your foot down, and then not so much so that you seem like you're just evil, but then at the same time you don't want to be so lenient that the kids are trying to friend request you on TikTok, Snapchat, they're trying to follow you on social media. Like, where is the great divide? And I think that, to be honest, that's going to be trial and error, and it's going to be case by case basis. But one thing I can say is that if you have done your job when it comes down to making sure that your communication is clear and kind, when it comes down to your rules and procedures, and that you're assertive without being like super controlling and overboard and negative. But at the same time, you're not like taking selfies with the kids and, trying to hang out, at their parties on Saturday. So finding that mix, I would definitely recommend also when you're trying to demonstrate kindness and you need tools and tips, ask your veteran teachers, ask the teacher who, when you go to their class, there's like 20 kids waiting, in the lunch, during lunch to go hang out with them. That teacher is doing something right. That teacher gets it. The teacher that the students just swarm to the class, and they love that teacher, there's something they're doing right regarding communication. And I would say, just take a trip down and talk to that teacher and see what they say. Now, another thing that you can do is you can offer handshakes. Now, some people, I used to do this as well. They offer like really cool handshakes. So not always just like, hi, how are you? But they like do the dap and the this and that, and they do all the sparkle stuff. That's really cool. You can do that. I remembered I used to have a handshake for so many students, and my students were like seniors, juniors, and seniors, and I would just do all these really cool handshakes. We had a really good time. And it really, I don't know, it really sets you apart from the other teachers, I would say. It's a good fun. It's a good healthy thing that you do with the kids. They're just so fun and so funny. And I hope that, after you watch this podcast, if you're in the classroom space, that you really get to experience some really cool opportunities, like, inventing a handshake. And you can literally just make it a classroom like morning activity. Hey guys, we want to talk about a handshake that we want to do before we get into the lesson, because this is going to build our classroom, relationship. This is going to build my opportunity as I'm getting to know you, and I need your help. And then you can walk with each of the students, like work with each of them and say, hey, what do you want your handshake to be? What do you want your handshake to be? What do you want to do? One teacher, she went viral for posting 4 different ways that the students could have expressions. Like if they didn't want a handshake, some students wanted a high five, some students wanted to do a wiggle dance and all this stuff. Kudos to her. And I thought it was pretty cool because the students got to choose more than one way as to how to do their handshakes. Now, these middle schoolers and high schoolers now, they want to do a handshake for like a minute long, and you got to memorize all this stuff and spin and, put your hand behind your back and stand on one foot. And like, I mean, they just have it so intense now. I mean, it's still cool, but to each his own. So with that said, just considering offering, a handshake or some kind of gesture. Also, creating a comfortable physical environment for students. Some students, we don't know what they're dealing with outside of the classroom, right? So they're doing their best to show up their best face, their best performance. And sometimes they just want to be comfortable. Think about it. Where are some places that we like to go when we're trying to study or we're trying to relax or trying to have a good time? Me personally, and I'm not advertising for any place, but there's this really popular coffee shop called Starbucks that I love to go to if I'm trying to relax. Or, if you're trying to also go to maybe Panera Bread or something like that, if you're really trying to focus in on something. Another place, if you like energy and you like all that stuff, Chick-fil-A might be another place. All these three places people talk about because their environments are welcoming and they work. They work for that type of vibe. Panera has a very just laid back / professional vibe. Starbucks has a collegey / relaxed vibe. I mean, these are my experiences. And then the other one that I mentioned, Chick-fil-A, it's kidsy, but it's just family oriented, very, very kind. So you know what you're getting into, right? Whenever you enter into these specific types of restaurants. So imagine if when students are about to enter into your classroom, that they have already this preconceived notion of, I have experienced A, B, C in this class. So I know when I go to this class, this is what I can expect. And I hope that when they experience A, B, C, that those are three good traits. So I want to challenge all you educators out there to say, what are the three good traits that that students can expect when they enter into your classroom? The vibe, the environment, the physical space. What can they expect? Is it going to be chaos and clutter? Is it going to be like, are you like the concrete sequential? You like everything vertical aligned, or are you horizontally aligned? How have you organized your classroom? Have you organized it like some of the lounging places? Like when I was at University of Florida, I loved going to their libraries and their computer lab and things like that, because they had options. Like you could be, like dorky techie. There was like a computer lab. It was like awesome. But then if you wanted to go to the library, there were different levels. Like, so they had like those couch potato little cushion things that you could sit on. Anyway, like the like little foamy balls in it. So they have those, but then they have like chairs, and then they had like really cool colored chairs. And I mean, you just do whatever you want. Then they had like, I think it was like the third floor, fourth floor, something like that. The higher the floor, like the quieter it had to get. And you could not, like, so if you were like super quiet, you could not make a sound on certain floors. I think it was in Turlington Hall, like where it was just, no, like that was forbidden. Nobody had to even tell you anything. You knew that was expectation, and that's what you needed to study. That's what they provided for you. So you had all the options there. Go Gators. And so, I just think that when students are talking about our classes, what are they saying about our classrooms? What are they saying about the environment? Oh, this teacher, they come in and what did they do? What are they going to say you're going to do? How are you going to greet them? What is the norm when it comes down to how you communicate with your students in your class? Is it that you just go to your desk, do your attendance? Are you the person that's like, don't bother me till I get my coffee? Or like, who are you? Who are you? What is the mold? What is the vibe? What are the top three things that kids can say that you do when it comes down to building a physical environment that is healthy, comfortable for all students? Are the students going to say, oh, that's that teacher? Oh, about 15 minutes through, they're going to start yelling. They're going to start sending everybody to the office. They're going to start calling parents. They're going to start suspending so-and-so, or they're going to, what are students going to say? Or are they going to say, oh, that teacher's amazing. They always give me DAP when I come to the door. They always have the bell work on the board. They always walk around, so I know I can't get away with anything. They're really understanding. They review homework with us. They challenge us. They make it really fun with, different debates and competitions. They are supportive on the computer lab. I like how we're sitting in groups of 4 or partners, or I like how we have learning walks, or how we're able to go around and see all the content on the walls of the classroom. I like how the teacher allows us to do the word wall for vocabulary. I like how they pass out tickets or money, or what are they saying about your class? So I want to encourage you, because this is really big. And I know I spent a long time on that, but I'll digress now. The next thing is to create a comfortable physical environment. I already said that. You also want to listen to students, because sometimes students are holding in so much information. And sometimes they just don't feel like that's like appropriate to talk about certain things with their parents or their guardians, because maybe it's not like that big of a deal. Or maybe they feel like there's something that they don't want to share outside of the classroom, but they really want to share with you because they really are trying to build, more vulnerability and more trust with you. Maybe they already like you. So maybe you can just enhance that relationship with your students. Now, another thing is to, get to know them, get to know their interests, get to know their backgrounds, get to know why they do what they do, what they're wanting to become when they grow up. Also, provide them one-on-one feedback. And when you're providing one-on-one feedback, be specific, not just good job, exclamation mark. Be specific as to what you liked in their work. Also, show them respect. Students do want respect. And I tell you, you cannot take it personal. Students will demand respect. They'll roll their eyes. They'll talk to you. They'll cut you off. And you just have to humble yourself. Don't take it personal, because you are a part of their learning experience. Be there for them. Also, that's the next thing. Be there for your students. If they're having a bad time, they're going through grief, they're going through some type of hardship at home, they're going through anxiety, they're trying to juggle work and school, trying to juggle sports, be there for them. And then, of course, celebrate them. Maybe you can go to a game that they've had, or maybe you can, celebrate their progress, send them a note home. You could provide some other type of reward, or an award that can, let the students know that you're proud of them. I mean, it's all in your hands. So I want to encourage you with that. Now, I want to take a moment and I want to share. Found this guy is talking about how to show appropriate affection for students. And so he's talking about, he wrote this in January 2019. He's talking about up here how basically you got some wild stories, some wild cards out there where teachers, unfortunately did not show the appropriate affection. So he's going to talk about 5 things that you can do to show appropriate affections for your students. So this is for all you rockstar teachers out there. I hope that you can really, and administrators. I think administrators can do this not only for students, but also for teachers. So first things first, make eye contact when smiling or while smiling. So as researcher Heidi Grant Halverson, they explained in the review article here, they quote what Heidi said. So she says in this review article, Harvard Business Review podcast, she says, many people think they project warmth and in fact don't. So they don't. And there are very simple things you can do. One of them is eye contact, particularly when the other people are talking. It is critical that you look at them when they're talking, because that's a clear sign of interest. I know lots of people who make this mistake, and even though they are totally listening, they'll let their eyes wander around the room, and that gives a clear sound that you're not in fact listening. And I want to say this makes me think of, all of the Zoom meetings that we have. And sometimes when you're having a Zoom meeting with students, or, whether you're a college or you're having a Zoom meeting with your employers, whatever, sometimes that does happen. Like there's just this, because there's not really appropriate etiquette that people talk about on a Zoom. I mean, people don't say, okay, sit there and just, I mean, come on. People aren't going to just sit there and blank. People are people. They're different. And so I think that, just being intentional with this. But I also want to caution and say that certain cultures find it offensive to look an adult in the eye as a student. So do some digging and make sure that when you're having those conversations with students, that you're not coming off as offensive, because you're demanding them to look you in the eye. And now they're feeling like they have violated a part of, their cultural norm. So with that said, let's keep going. He says, use appropriate physical touch. Now, As a male high school teacher, he's very mindful of the fact that touch should be used sparingly and that he in any way doesn't want to communicate an inappropriate affection for his students or make any of them feel comfortable. Now, this is big because, especially when you're talking about touch, because touch is a love language, physical touch. And depending on how much you touch, that can come off as really weird or whatever. So here he's talking about, and yes, I do occasionally get left hanging, as my kids say, by a student who doesn't want to shake or high five. So with that, he makes a zero deal out of the situation. He just smiles and move on. That's important because even as you're trying to build relationships, sometimes the student might not want to shake your hand. They might not want anything to do with you or your class, but they're tolerating you. So that's how you have to learn, like, each student and build up to those levels of love and those levels of appreciation. I will say definitely men definitely have to be very careful when it comes down to physical touch, because any pat on the back or whatever can totally be misunderstood, and it can be traumatizing to students because we don't know what they're going through. We don't know what they've experienced, right? And so even though they look wonderful and it looks like they would be very receptive and even inviting, I would highly recommend do not initiate any type of touch, physical touch towards students. I remember when COVID first, or when we had the pandemic and things like that. I remember, we did the 6 feet thing, but I remember sometimes students would still want to shake a hand or whatever. And sometimes we would just do a fist bump, like fist bump, because it's safe. And it was usually like if we saw they were coming to say hello, this is actually even pre-pandemic, they were coming to say hello, we would just do a fist bump so that they knew, okay, the teacher is redirecting my love, redirecting my energy towards a fist bump. I can do that. So I'm not rejecting you as a student. I'm redirecting you to appropriate ways to communicate physically with me so that, everything remains professional and above board. So that's one thing that I remembered was successful, when we were working with the babies and communicating with them. And then also, let's get back to this article. So he also talks about, but what if you do if the student comes up and they want to hug? So how do you redirect a hug? Now, especially when they're grades K-5, they are babies, like for real. Kindergarten is, they're 5 years old. That is a baby, pretty much. So what do you do if they come up, they want to hug? If this happens, he says, it does happen. And in these situations, I will either reach out my hand, right, for a handshake, or need be turned sideways, good, for a sideways hug. And that's usually like after the kid has just, or you just let the kid swarm you and you just sit there and you just laugh and just, you just, just say, wow, all right, let's get going, just keep it above board. Or he says here, I'll usually say something like, let's shake instead. Let's shake instead. It's good to see you. That's great. That's a really good redirect. So it's all about redirecting when it comes down to physical touch. And then let's get to the next topic. So now he says the third thing he would recommend is create quick moments of quality time. So genuine connection, quick moments. You can find more about these. I want to say something here. As you are doing your best to create quick moments, don't be sleazy with it. Don't be weird. Don't be slimy. Be authentic, because kids can tell if you're fake or not. And I'm just putting that out. And don't be weird. Ugh. It just makes me think of certain people I know that they try this and it just comes off really off, really, really sleazy. So just be cautious when you're doing this. Do a couple, trial and error runs and see if it works out for you. All right, next. 4, encourage the kids by calling out good things. So he says, I'm not talking about those weird passive aggressive moments where you're like, okay, class, I really appreciate that. Kat is reading quietly right now. No, I'm talking about any opportunity you see where a kid overcomes a challenge, does something better today than they did yesterday, engages in or with a hard to handle peer, or anything else that's good. So he gives us an example here, guys. Kat, I noticed today how you sat and read through that difficult article, annotating purposefully as you went for the full 20 minutes. That wasn't easy. I just want you to know that I see and appreciate your hard work. Keep it up. And here's an amazing side of a benefit of seeking to genuinely encourage kids. It can pull you out of an encouragement slump too, which is excellent. You give, I mean, energy. It's all energy. You give, you give love, you get love. And then the next thing he says, write down one thing with one student that you appreciate. Wow. After every hour. That's powerful. Look at this. He says, write down one thing with one student that you appreciate every hour. So even if it's just, he's just saying, after you teach and the time is crazy, as soon as you're done teaching or you're now starting to prep, you know how that is, right, guys? You're going to sit down and write one thing that you appreciate from a particular kid in each hour. Write 1 to 2 sentences about it and then move on to your next class. He says when you're doing this with discipline, it's training your heart and your mind to latch on to the positive moments with your kids, the moments that remind you of the humanity. That's why we get into this, right? Humanity that you share with them, and of the reasons why you entered into the profession that serves young people, of the reasons why this work is inherently good and noble. Now, he says 2 things to stop doing. I think it's powerful. I'm going to go back up to what he was saying here about the humanity of what you share with students and then writing the 1 to 2 sentences. I'm going to tell you, I think this is what really kind of made my classroom stand out when I was in the classroom and even as an administrator. I think it was because I had those humane moments where there were some times where I would go around and I would compliment every single student that day. Literally. I would say, okay, student A, boom. I really enjoy how you're always, very positive, very ready to go, upbeat. You always got something to contribute wonderfully to the lesson, and you really make it better here. Student B, I like how, even though math's not your favorite subject, you come every day with grit and you come ready to learn and you never complain and you're very respectful towards me. Thank you. Student C, literally, I would go through all 25 students that day in that class and I would lift all of them up. That is the thing. Who are you lifting up? How can you lift up every single student? Can you intentionally ask yourself, how can I lift up every single student in my classroom? Because it's imperative that that's what the goal is, that's the objective, is that after they leave your space, they have something to hold on to, words of hope, words of comfort to help them, through the rest of the day, to help them through the weekend, to help them through the week. So I want to just say that that's just a confirmation what the man was talking about when it came down to really knowing students. So I want to encourage you, to really do what you can to know the students. Now let's get back to his article. I just found his article was really cool. He really shares a lot of key points for us. So he says here, 2 things to stop doing. Ooh. Stop reducing them or your students to their negative behaviors. This is powerful. He says the young people in your care are no more or less naturally rational than yourself. It's possible that you've trained yourself to see your emotions objectively during the years since you were the age of your students. It's also possible, of course, that you haven't and that you're blind to how your emotions cloud your vision. The thing is, viewing them from a position of superiority, that's powerful. Wow. Is sure to make it harder for you to like them. If you think of them as one-dimensionally dumb or lazy or apathetic or rude or foolish, then you're likely to struggle with them. Let's think about that. Do we have students that when they come to our class, we think they're dumb, we think they're lazy, apathetic, we think they're rude, we think they're foolish? If so, I just want to challenge that thought right there. And then, of course, I want to make you think about, how are you really treating that child? If you were in their shoes, Would you want to come to your class today? Those are some things to think about. So he's really making us think here. He says, even if you try to show your affection in the ways I suggest above, they'll sense the insincerity. I told you, students can pick up on fake all day. And if you're like, I don't understand why they don't like me, I don't understand why they connect, honey, do some reflection. Figure out, is it coming off genuinely? Is there a cultural divide? Is there a social divide? What is it? Did you maybe do something last week on the grade and they're a little bit salty about it? You know, I mean, how would you like, I mean, you know what it's like being an educator or being a student. You know, it was a horrible thing when you got slashed down by the teacher. -5, -5, -6. You've got a 30% in my class. Like, nobody wants to go there. Nobody wants to go to that teacher. They feel like they can't win. The thing is, we've got to convince students that they can win in our class. Okay. Now let's keep going back to this article. He says, this is what I love and cherish about teaching. You really can't cheat. If you want to maximally impact your students for their long-term good, you've got to maximally impact your own heart. There's no skipping the internal work. I'm going to be honest with you. This is probably the most imperative lesson about teaching. It's not about us. It's about how we uplift others and our heart condition. How are we? Do we hold on to grudges? Are we super bitter? And students will tell you about yourself. They will tell you the truth. So I love it. They will keep it real, 100%. But this is huge because it's going to help us internally, you know, to be better people. And I think at the end of the day, we just want to be better people. We want to be good people. Okay, so now let's get back to this guy. Step 2, he says, stop complaining. He says, I know I harp a lot on this, but it's because I've seen in my own heart and in the hearts of countless colleagues the kind of fruit that habitually complaining produces. It just murders you. Wow. I accidentally clicked on the link. It murders you, internally speaking, in the slow way of a malignant tumor in its early stages. Listen, if you sit and complain daily about your students, then it is a metaphysical impossibility for your heart to remain close to the work of seeking their long-term good. Let me repeat that. Take a moment and let's repeat this. He said, listen, if you sit and complain daily about your students, then it is a metaphysical impossibility for your heart to remain close to the work of seeking their long-term good. Wow. That's the goal, their long-term good. So complaining to them is not going to help. This is when you might have to turn to the whiteboard and just start writing the date or start writing out more explanation on the notes or on a bell work problem so that you don't say something that you'll wind up regretting or something that will really damage the students unintentionally. So let's keep going. He says, so determine to love them and remove yourself from circumstances in which complaining about kids is the dominant form of communication. So this is very powerful, and I'm very happy that we were able to look at that together. And it just really makes me think of the power of a teacher and the power that you have. There's a celebrity that he gave a shout out. He was on stage and he found his teacher in the stadium. He's like, I need y'all to help me. He's like, I'm looking for Miss So-and-so. And like literally he tracks her down and thanks her for her contribution because she was a good teacher. So there's power in educators. There is so much power that we hold. We're influencers and we're molders. We give life. And so it's something that we don't want to take for granted or something we don't want to do wrong. So I want to wish you the best with that. And before we wrap this up, I'm just giving you my last minute tips. Tips for getting to know your students. Ask about their culture. Ask about their family. Ask about their activities, favorite activities, their sports or music events, and build trust through suggesting hobbies, book interests, and consider their love language. We're talking about love today. There are many love languages, right? There's physical touch, words of affirmation. There's the fixer upper, the person that does everything. There's like, I think 5 love languages at least. People sometimes they love through, or they communicate well through music and other channels, right? So remember, at the end of the day, our goal is to really build up our children. And I want to also help you to remember that healthy love towards others requires sacrifice, humility, and forgiveness. Again, healthy love towards others requires sacrifice, humility, and forgiveness. And so as you're doing this, I also want to, leave you with this suggestion. Consider implementing procedures that provoke healthy relationships with students by building the student up as a whole child, whether that's a PBIS system, SEL works, or connecting deeper with families within your community. Remember, it's all about love. It's all about how you can show appropriate love to these babies so that they can go and be amazing when they grow up and evolve into productive citizens in society. So with that said, thanks so much for joining me on this phenomenal podcast, the Grit and Equity Talks podcast. Again, you can find this on the X Factor Network with Dr. Matthew Joseph. Remember to follow me on social media. Facebook is Miss India White. LinkedIn is the India White. Twitter is Indie Speak and Teach. Instagram is Indie238. YouTube is India White 123. And TikTok is Dr. India White. And then remember my upcoming events. I have a keynote on the 23rd through the 25th at the medical conference in Maryland. The Grit and Numeracy workshops, I'm hoping to have many of you join me in those in California and from March 5th through the 7th. And then, of course, I'll be speaking, and I hope to see many of you at CMC Central in Bakersfield. So with that said, guys, it's been phenomenal. And also, don't forget to check out my website whenever you get a chance. If you're wanting more information on blogs, books, or to schedule me for your next speaking or coaching event, I am here for you. So with that said, I hope you're enjoying yourself. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. Take care of yourself. Enjoy your weekend. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Take care.